Ready?
Right.
All right, I call the October Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Good morning. Thank everyone for joining us for the Board of Commissioners meeting. We are broadcasting this meeting live on a virtual platform. Again, for your reference, all information shared today is available online at www.nrha.us in the Board of Commissioners section. We'll also have a public hearing for the city funding application later in the meeting, and virtual participants will have an opportunity to, as we call it, raise their hands to comment. And when we get to that point, I'll share those instructions as we get closer to the public hearing time. Again, we have a very busy agenda today. First, I'd like to recognize our guests who will be addressing us shortly. We have with us the City of Norfolk Chief of Police, Larry Boone. Also with the Chief Boone is Sergeant Philip Dixon, and he will be doing a presentation on crime concerns, crime suppression strategies, and will entertain questions about that issue. As commissioners, we have seen, if not an uptick in crime, an increase in the severity of acts within our housing communities. We appreciate both Chief Boone and Sergeant Dixon being here today to address these particular issues. Again, as I mentioned, Michael Clark will give us an update on the city funding application, and then citizens will also have an opportunity to comment on the Development Division proposed program. We'll also have a closed session today that will follow our normal public business. Also, just to remind you, keep on your calendars, we'll have an in-person retreat on Monday, October 26th and Wednesday, October 28th. The sessions on both days will be from 9 a.m. to noon in the boardroom. We'll also have Dr. Janice Sanchez cover topics as we commissioners felt the need to be addressed in light of things that are going on, particularly social unrest around the themes of race, diversity, and inclusion, and their impacts nationally as well as in our communities and within the NRHA organization. Also, please complete the survey sent out by Dr. Sanchez, and she has asked that you send those responses in by the end of the day, Monday, October 19th. All right, I will now invite your comments on any of the minutes from the meeting of September 10th.
A small correction to the minutes on page 3, second paragraph, second line. The name of our facilitator is Janice, Janis, rather than Donna Sanchez.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Note made. Any other comments? All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
And a second?
A second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Arrington? Aye. Mr. Gresham?
Aye.
Ms. Purrier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Musacchio?
Aye. All right, now we'll move to the executive director's room comment.
Good morning, commissioners and guests. I just have a few items in light of the number of items we have on the agenda today. One is that we are, staff and myself, we're going to be hosting a virtual meet and greet throughout our housing community starting next week, and that'll be the first one next week. And the last one is actually going to occur the week before Thanksgiving. So this is something I initially wanted to do before, arriving here with the, onset of the pandemic. I really didn't have the opportunity, but now with the number of issues going on, we felt that this was a good opportunity for me to go to each community and have the opportunity to meet with the residents virtually. And primarily, the things that we'll be talking about are, we'll be addressing resident safety, which is an issue we're going to be talking about, and sort of related to that, with Sergeant Dixon going to be talking about some of the crime in our community. But we're going to be addressing resident safety. And then also, we wanted to provide some clarifications on the eviction moratorium, what it means. This will be another opportunity for us to sort of encourage people to, it doesn't mean it's a waiver of any rents or past due, but they still going to be responsible to pay when the moratorium ends. And so that'll be our opportunity to encourage them to pay if they're able, but if they're not, to make sure that they contact their property manager or the occupancy to let them know the case manager let them know that they're having issues paying rent, and we can make the proper adjustments. So like I said, that starts next week, and it'll end each one of the communities, and that'll end like the week, actually the week before Thanksgiving. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was our COVID housing cost relief program that we've had in place. We had it open for a couple of weeks. We got the money from about $2 million from the city, and primarily for people who don't have any other assistance, who've been impacted by the pandemic, and they have utilities, rent, or mortgage in arrears. And so in the 2 or 3 week period we had it opened up, we received 538 applications, and this is where we currently stand. We have about, out of that, we have about 21% of those that have been approved or close to being approved. 63% of those applications are still sort of in a holding pattern where people have submitted some information. They hadn't submitted all the documentation that was required. And so we're having a hold openness at about 336 applications that really can't move forward on because we haven't received proper documentation. But you can see how possibly how the pandemic has impacted all businesses, maybe the businesses that they've worked at, because they're trying to get documentation W-2s they probably didn't have. I don't know what other, organizations that they have to get the documentation that they need for the application, so they're probably being overrun too. So, but anyway, we're still trying to, work with them, and these are people we've at least contacted 4 more times out of the 336. So we're just holding them and hopefully that they can follow through and provide their information. Now there's another 16% that they are either they haven't provided any documentation that they're eligible. It was determined that they're ineligible or that they're no longer interested. So it has been challenging for staff because most of the programs throughout the state that have had this program, they run into the same challenges. But our staff, our team that's dedicated to this, done a great job. And of the ones that they've approved, of just one of the testimonials I just wanted to share with you that they recently received. This was from a Norfolk citizen that was approved, and we're in the process of making a payment to the rent for their rent utilities, and their testimonial said that I'm so relieved, excited. You are all wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. This is the best thing that has ever happened to me. You are amazing. Could not have done it without you. Can't thank you enough. So this, despite the challenges, these are the things that we want to, even if they don't respond in writing, this is the satisfaction that we hope to be able to bring to people who have been impacted by the pandemic. And like I said, with the challenges and staff working, 7 days a week, all hours of the day to try to get the program to get it so that we get the money out to the people that really deserve it. So I just wanted to give y'all an update on that. And I wanted to thank Mike and his staff, Rebecca, LaShawn, and all the other folks that have really helped taking this program to where it is today.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to follow up on that. First, commending our executive director for his work there, but also the Garden of Hope received a crisis grant, COVID crisis grant, a small amount of money, but we have about $3,000 or $4,000 left in it, and our screening criteria may be a little less, because of our HUD, restrictions. So it's extensive. So please have the staff, refer people to the Garden of Hope, and we'll just help them until the money's gone.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
so, we've only used
Garden of Hope.
Garden of Hope. The
Okay.
number is 757-390-4328. And just tell them they'd like to pay for
Okay.
they'd like some help with rental assistance.
Okay.
And we'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Other comments? Kind of funny you mentioned that. It often reminds me of sometimes in high school when you had to go to the principal's office, but you needed a hall pass, but you couldn't get a hall pass until you went to the principal's office. So that's what it seems like here.
Yeah.
You need to show me that you couldn't make any money from a place that's no longer open. You know, have that circle there.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Commissioners' comments? Any other comments? All right.
Just one more, Don, before we get going. I do want to thank Chief Boone for being here in person today. He's I know the demands on his time, and I chat regularly, so I think it demonstrates, I think, his commitment to resolving the issues that plague us, and I know that he shares my passion for helping so many of the young people and old people or older, as I do in the community. And so, Chief, thanks for showing up this morning. Sergeant Dixon is a mainstay here, and so he's part of the family, and so we see him a lot. But appreciate you showing up in the person today.
Other comments? All right, well, Chief Boone, Sergeant Dixon, we'll ask you to come on up and talk to us about community engagement. For the commissioners, that's on page 18 of your documents. So again, gentlemen, welcome.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Very, very quickly, may I take this off?
Yes.
Just very quickly, the intent is to kind of bring you up to speed on some of the things that you're concerned about and the things that we're encountering in our NRHA communities, especially some of what may seem like a significant increase in our crime concerns. So what I'm going to do is just go through some of the stats and bring you up to speed by each community of what is going on as far as that's concerned. Then I'll answer any questions that you might have concerning those. Chief, did you have anything you want to say?
I'll just get in where I fit in.
Is this?
Oh.
Okay. Real quick, the first thing that I'm going to go through is just a brief snapshot of what our crime data is right now, as it reflects what's going on in the city as compared to what we're encountering in our NRHA communities. Today, we've had 33 homicides. 2 occurred in NRHA communities. Accounts for, you see the percentage there, about 16% of all the reported murders today. 47 reported rapes, none occurred in any of our NRHA communities. $160 reported robberies citywide. 8 occurred in our NRHA housing communities. 235 aggravated assaults citywide. 19 of those occurred in our NRHA housing communities. Aggravated assaults, let me clarify that. Aggravated assaults also includes shooting into an occupied vehicle, shooting into a dwelling, aside with just your aggravated assault against a person. And what that means is that instead of just a simple assault, there was some factor there that caused it to be aggravated, whether it was a weapon involved or whether the victim sustained some kind of injury, which elevates it to an aggravated assault.
aggravated assault don't necessarily have to mean a weapon was involved. It could mean fisticuffs as well. And last year we had a significant issue with that. So it involves a multitude of things, not necessarily handguns.
So you said you guys do count occupied dwelling shootings into aggravated assault?
Yes, sir.
So the next stat that you're gonna say, is that subtracted from the 225 or in addition to 235 of aggravated assault?
The next.
What we are encountering, it will be what's occurring in our, communities. Yeah, so subtracted from the actual 235. Okay, gotcha.
I might add that you've got a decimal in there, those decimals shouldn't be there.
Right.
So it's 6% of all murders, not 0.06,
Yeah.
which is infinitesimal.
20.
Sister Mary Thomas would be very proud.
Well, that's just awesome. Oh, no.
The aggravated assault,
Yes, ma'am.
are these residents or mostly the residents or people outside?
It is a combination. A lot of our assaults, for instance, our domestic aggravated assaults, typically end up being our residents that are engaged in some kind of domestic. A lot of our issues stem from people who do not reside in the community but are guests of residents in the community. One more thing, Sergeant Dixon. Yes, sir. I'm an 8th grader when it comes to this stuff. Are we saying there are 400 aggravated assaults, including the occupied shootings and occupied dwellings? Or are we taking, what I'm saying is, are we taking that out of the 235 and now saying, out of the 235, 165 were occupied dwelling shootings? So we said 235, we said
That's for the city. That's for the entire city.
Right, but aggravated assault does include shooting into an occupied dwelling, correct?
Yes, yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Building, vehicle, a person, someone getting assaulted.
So the 165, is that pulled out of the 235?
Out of the 235.
You get what I'm trying
I
to
think I understand what you're saying now. That's correct.
Okay.
So it's 235 aggravated assault, of which 165 is a
That's correct,
subset of
in
that.
our.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
No.
We'll flow this morning. Again, that was 165 shooting into an occupied dwelling. 21 of those occurred in NRJ housing and accounted for 12% of all shootings into an occupied dwelling. That's just that stat alone. Gotcha. Thank you. 48 shooting into an occupied vehicle citywide. 8 of those occurred in our NRJ communities. There were 188 weapons violations. 26 of those occurred in NRHA housing communities, and 139 gunshot victims that were non-fatal. 9 of those occurred in our NRHA communities. All right. What I'd like to do is just go by each community, starting with the south side. Just detailing the amount of crime each community has had and the issues there, just with the violent crime. Starting with Diggs. As you can see, that bottom number is what we're really concerned about, is whether there's an increase or a reduction. Diggs, there was a 20% reduction in the violent crime. This is attributed to the fact that there are not a lot of people, and we've gotten rid of some of the housing and some of the folks that have moved out of Diggs.
With respect to Diggs, if you do a 5-year trend line, total crime, which includes any property crime and any violent crime combined. So in 2016, there were 63. 2017, there was 48. 2018, there was 23. 2019, there was a spike. There was 40. And currently, to date, there's 24. That's violent crime and property crime combined for a 5-year trend line. So for Diggs Town, we're going down.
Are you insinuating that's because you're the chief that's happened?
Yes.
No.
He's not insinuating, he's just telling you.
No, I don't want to do that, because with that
That's
comes the
right.
other as well.
You gotta put 'em on the
hook.
That's right.
But I always like to give a full picture, and in our business is always a 3 to 5 year trend line, not just a moment.
Thank you, Chief. With the next stats, and all of these stats will encompass the 1 year period from 2019 to 2020. And I'm sure the chief will follow up with the 5 year trend. In Oakleaf, again, that bottom number is what we're concerned about. Oakleaf, a 129% increase in violent crime there. Now, that sounds bad, but one increase in one of these areas will increase it by 100%. For instance, we had in 2019, there were 2 homicides. In 2020, there were none. So that's a negative 2. But what we did sustain is an increase in the aggravated assaults. 2019, there was only 3. 2020, there were 14, just in that area alone. Oakleaf is challenging for us right now. We've got some issues going on as far as folks discharging weapons. We've got the aggravated assaults that encompass shooting into an occupied vehicle and those nature, crimes of those nature. Several robberies to the individual. There was 1 in 2019, only 2 in 2020.
Are these
Yes, sir.
numbers like representative of the larger community where Oakleaf is? You know, that these numbers are sort of representative of the greater community?
Can you change your? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir.
Are these numbers like reflective of the greater community that Oakleaf is in? Like there's like you see the same increase in 2020 and like the aggravated assault in the greater community as well?
In the surrounding
Yeah, the
community.
surrounding community.
I did not pull those stats, and I only focus on what's going on in Oakleaf and not the neighboring communities, so to speak. But I can certainly do that.
I was just curious.
Sergeant Benson, are you saying that of the 14 assaults, 4 were against officers?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Or 4 against officers? Aggravated assault.
That's
Leo?
That's a stat that's grouped together. There were no assaults on law enforcement officers. It's just that those 2 stats are grouped together. Right. Chief, you have anything on Oakleaf?
So the 5 year trend for Oakleaf, in 2016, total crime again, there were 30 incidents. 2017, 21 incidents. 2018, 19 incidents. 2019, there was a spike, 37 incidents. And currently, to date, 33 incidents. So that, it's been studied somewhat. We haven't seen a
18? You say 18 to 18?
from 2016 to 2020.
What was your number at 18?
19.
19. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So it's been studied in the sense that it went down, it went back up, and it's starting to go down again. Where are you going to next?
I'm going to Grandy, sir. Grandy Village. We've not had any increase in violent crime in Grandy Village. We've got several other issues going on there, but as far as our violent crime, that is not an issue right now, with the exception of 2 aggravated assaults that we sustained in 2019 and 2020. So there's been no change either way. So our crime concerns there still hold at 0. With respect to Grandy Village, when I say that we have some issues that we're addressing there, we have an influx of new folks that are moving into Grandy, and that's bringing an influx of folks that normally would not be in Grandy that are attached to the residents that are moving in. So we're dealing with that issue and trying to make sure that the residents are aware of their responsibility as far as making sure that their guests
want to do an overview, Randy?
Yes, sir, if you have that stat, I'm sorry.
All right, just slow up.
Yes, sir.
All right, so 5-year trend again, 2016, there were 5 incidents. I'm sorry. All right, that's wrong page. All right, so for 2016 Grandy Village, there were 23 incidents. 2017, there were 29 incidents. 2018, there were 18 incidents. In 2019, there were 24 incidents. And currently today, 2020, there's 25 incidents. So that trend line has been consistent. No ups, no downs, for the most part. Grandy Village, total crime.
Can I ask a question that you started, Dixon?
Yes, sir.
Definitely echoing what Alfonso's already said to you people, and thank you guys for coming out. I think what we're trying to do is figure out how we can play into this. So I'm asking, when you said with Randy, the guests that aren't residents and under patrol, can you kind of like give us examples of what you mean by that?
Real quick, in that incident, got officers that are on patrolling the community. They observed a vehicle parked on the side with people standing around, alcoholic beverages on top of the vehicle, with the smell of marijuana in the air. Folks just kind of hanging out. Officers get out to investigate. None of these folks live in Grandy, but they're visitors of a particular resident. As it turns out, these individuals are from Newport News. Officer conducts a search of the vehicle because of the marijuana, finds several weapons. So those things, when the officers are being proactive and notice things that just don't look right that a resident would be doing, they're obligated to address those things. And when we address those things, it leads us to the fact that a lot of the folks that we come in contact are not residents. And so when we address where they're from, who they're visiting, we're able to find out who they're visiting, then we address the resident and try to curtail the problem that way. Thank you. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Calvert Square. Calvert has had, and it may not seem this way because we're hearing back-to-back incidents that are occurring in Calvert. And I surprised myself with this stat because I thought it would be higher, simply because of what we're dealing with right now. In 2019, there were no homicides, 3 sex crimes, 2 robberies, 7 aggravated assaults. Same time period this year, there were still no homicides, no sex crimes, no robberies, but 10 aggravated assaults. Even with those 10 aggravated assaults, it led to a 17% decrease. And based on what we were seeing, I was a little, wasn't sure if that stat was right. So after checking and double checking and triple checking, it is right. So some of the issues that we're having in Calvert, as you may already well know from the significant event report that Ms. Rose sends out, is that we're seeing an increase in aggravated assaults related to shooting into an occupied vehicle or just shooting in general, shooting into an occupied dwelling. These things are the result of, and I'll get into this a little bit later, the chief may want to expound on it a little bit, between conflict between several of our NRHA communities and some of the folks that live within those communities and a lot of the folks that don't live with them. So, again, there was a 17% decrease. Chief, do you have the 5-year?
I just want to explain, because I just noticed Sergeant Dixon's projection of just violent crime only. What I'm giving you is a combination of both, just so we have a good picture of what we look like as a whole. So for Calvert Square, in 2016, there were 34 incidents. Again, that's violent crime and property crime. 2017, there were 23 incidents. 2018, there were 30 incidents. 2019, there were 41 incidents. And to date, 2020, there's 32 incidents. And again, that's kind of steady, is neither up or down when you average it out. And that's for Keller Square.
Any questions regarding Calvert?
So the shootings are coming from other communities coming in there shooting. And
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
so the shootings are coming from other communities coming into.
It's a back and forth, between folks that affiliate themselves with Young's and folks that affiliate themselves with, Calvert.
As well as Oakland.
Right. And we're getting, as the chief said, with Oak Leaf as well, but the concentration is between Calvert and, Calvert and, Young's. And when I say the concentration of folks, we are talking about, affiliated gang members, folks that, just have this ongoing beef, between each other. Occasionally we have the opportunity to find out what some of that is about, but we don't always know what they are fighting about. The chief may be able to expand on that a little bit more.
I'll get into that piece.
Okay. Moving on to Tidewater. As you might expect, that bottom number there, a negative 60% reduction in our violent crime.
Can you flip the screen?
I'm sorry. 2009. I'm sorry.
I really appreciate this high-level data overview to kind of give us a sense. But as a data person, I have a little issue, or I have a question about this one. On violent crime, murder, none in 2019 and 1 in 2020. And so you have no change of percentage?
And that would be a miscalculation on my part.
Well, I'm not
What are
casting
we
blame,
talking about?
but it throws your entire,
The top number.
yeah.
Where it's at.
And so when you do that, it throws that minus 60% off. I think that what you're trying to say is still sound,
Right.
but if you present these data other places,
Right.
there's going to be somebody like me that's going to.
And you know what? I appreciate that.
Yeah. You
It's
get it
always
now.
one.
In 2019, there were 3 sexual assaults, 16 aggravated assaults, 1 robbery, and 2020, as we noted, the 1 homicide, no sexual assaults, 3 robberies, and those were to the individual, where an individual was robbed on the street. Aggravated assaults were down to 4 in 2020. And where you see the stat that says all other aggravated assaults, those are assaults that are not compiled into the shooting into an occupied dwelling that fall outside of the category of those. And again, that negative 60%, and Ms. Breeder, thank you very much. That would affect the total,
Yeah.
but not that significantly. Yeah, but it still affects the total. So, thank you.
I don't want, never mind. I don't want.
That's not Sergeant Dixon's fault. That's a process we've done in terms of.
And I don't want to detract, I don't want to nitpick and detract from the overall good information you guys have. As I appreciate the general trend lines. But I just know if I ask this question, somebody else is going to answer it.
Right. And it's not nitpicking, it's,
It is a little, but I
I appreciate it.
Making you better.
Thank you, absolutely.
I would never say that.
Again, that's not Sergeant Dixon's fault. That is a process we've done for years, at least as long as I've been.
Yeah, it's just a quirk, I think, in probably the spreadsheet or something.
Right.
moving on to Young's. Can I get a trend line for Tidewater Gardens?
Yes, sir.
All right, 5-year trend line, Tidewater Gardens, again, property and violent crime. 2016, there were 62 incidents. 2017, there were 52. 2018, 54. 2019, 54. 2020, 30. And again, that's somewhat consistent, except for this year, it seems to have dropped down a bit compared to the previous years.
All right. As we move on to Young's. Young's is, in comparison to Calvert, one of our hotspots. And looking at that bottom figure, a plus 35% increase in our violent crime in Young's. 2019, we had 3 homicides. In 2020, there was 1. Or there is 1. 1 sexual assault, none in 2020. No robberies in 2019, 2 in 2020. Aggravated assaults. This is where our crime stats start to have that uptick. 13 in 2019, 20 this year. Those aggravated assaults can be attributed to the ongoing feud and things that are going on between folks that live in Young's and Calvert. This encompasses the increase that you definitely noticed in the shootings to an occupied dwelling, the shootings into an occupied vehicle, or the actual shootings where folks are not actually are wounded but are not killed. And that total figure, again, increased by 35%. Chief.
So the trend line for Young's Terrace, if we go back to 2016, there were 63 incidents. 2017, 54. 2018, 46. 2019, 42. And 2020, 54. So we were trending down right nicely, and then this last year we went right back up.
Regarding our shooting-related incidents, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this particular slide because it encompasses figures for the entire city. It does not encompass what we've already talked about, what our shootings are and our violent crime in each one of the communities singularly. Chief, do you have any? The next,
Does this kind of support what Mr. Jackson was asking about as far as the data on surrounding communities? Could we generalize based on these numbers?
It's so spread out, it's hard to attribute that to any particular community.
This is a comparison of crime total-wide, citywide, in comparison to what's going on in our NRHA communities. And the chief has given us a 5-year overview, but this is just the 2019 to 2020 overview, which encompasses all violent crime and all property crime. So if we look at that middle figure where it says violent crime, we're right at 2%, a 2% increase, which would be, and I had to double check this figure and triple check it because, again, I was concerned that with everything that's going on, it seems like it should be higher than that for us. But
so that 2% increase represents this one incident increase. It's one more incident compared to last year. Last year was 63, this year is 64.
And the same thing with property crime, negative 23% in that area. And that encompasses our NRHA communities. In comparison with citywide, violent crime is down by negative 5% over the past year. Total property crime add to that?
Yeah.
All right, I think, aside from hearing all the stats about what, is going on in our NRHA communities, I think you'd like to hear what we're doing about it and, what, can be done, about it. Some of the violent crime suppression strategies that we've employed, what the chief has done is, units such as our anti-crime initiative, and the gun violence initiative, members of our special operations team, community resource officers, K-9 officers, the gang unit, and all of the supplemental patrol units are directed to remain in our hotspot areas. Hotspots would be Calvert, Youngs, and Oakley. And what I mean by remaining in those areas, they are to get out and foot patrol, engage, make sure that they are noticed in the communities. We stepped up the enforcement of warrants for violent felons and wanted gang members, especially those that we know are frequenting our NRHA communities.
Sergeant Nixon, could you describe the frequency that policemen are on the ground at, let's say, Young's? I mean, once a day, constantly?
Young's, Calvert, Tidewater, Oakley, they are there frequently. We're mandated to be there.
Multiple times a day?
Absolutely.
Guys, policemen, we walk through the neighborhood, okay?
Right. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to see them walking through the neighborhood all the time, but due to the call volume that we have to handle as well.
Okay.
So, but when the officers are in their downtime and there's nothing going on, make special efforts to make sure that we're in those areas and being highly visible.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that you may have noticed also, and it's just a little thing, is that when the officers are patrolling at night, they have those two overhead lights on. They're called cruise lights, to make sure that residents in the community know that the police are there. Aside from seeing the actual vehicle, that's just an added feature that they know that the police are out there. We're continuing our collaboration meetings with NRHA Housing, the CROs, homicide, gangs, adult and juvenile probation. And what that means is that we're keeping all those entities informed as to what we're doing and what's going on and how we can better attack the issues that we're having. Something that probation and parole may see that we're not seeing. Something that we're seeing they may not see. So we're communicating with them because they have folks in our communities that are at times problematic, and that's just another avenue to assist in remediating the problem. We have a zero tolerance enforcement regarding curfew violations and trespassing. Those have helped to reduce opportunities for crime, especially with our curfew enforcement. We have juveniles that are out all time of the night. When we address that, we find that our crime stats tend to go down. Opportunities for crime don't exist as much. The community resource officers continue to focus on intelligence-led policing using all available information resources. Now, what does that mean? That means that just aside from the CROs out in the communities patrolling, there's a different aspect to what we are engaged in today. We see a lot of things that are going on social media. We see folks that are communicating online, social media, etc. So when we have officers that are adept to handling and being able to find certain things that are occurring in each one of our communities, we're better able to address those before they actually happen. For instance, when we have postings of a gathering in Oakley or a gathering in Brandy, we're better able to prepare for that, and the people on the other end don't know that we have that information. So we're able to shut a lot of those things down before they actually happen. One of the things that the community resource officers do, one of the things that the community resource officers continue to do, and is a mainstay of our function, is that we conduct relentless follow-ups. If there's a crime that occurs in an NRHA community, we need to follow up with that head of household and that resident and find out exactly what transpired, what other information that we can obtain to help the investigators try to solve whatever the issue might be. We have identified and solved a number of issues that way. People that are reluctant to talk to us out on the scene when everything is going on. We go back a day or so, they'll invite us into their house and give us some significant information that will eventually help us. One of the other things is that we must maintain the communication that we have with the NRHA. My community resource officers in communication with Ms. Rose's staff creates a situation where we're both informed about what's going on in the community and how we can both address those issues. Moving forward, some of the sorry.
Last one, Sergeant Dick.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Ideas and initiatives to encourage residents to anonymously report crime and suspect information to the police. This is one of the things that we have constantly tried to figure out. How can we get people to talk to us and provide us with information that they would like to provide in reference to crimes and issues going on in the community. Part of that problem is nobody wants to be seen talking to the police when we're out and about. So what we are doing and what we have done is that we go door to door occasionally and provide our cards to the head of household, have a brief conversation. We make our cell phones available and instruct the residents that you don't have to call us. You don't have to have a verbal conversation. If there's something going on in the community, you simply text. You can simply say, for instance, there's a group of guys out in front of, 1700 Greenleaf, and that has been really helpful to us. We've gotten quite a good response doing that. Until we're able to have residents get that trust factor back, which we have experienced somewhat of a loss due to no fault of our own. Until we're able to get that back and have people communicate with us like they used to, it's just a little difficult at the moment, but we're finding ways to get around that. One of the other things that we are constantly exploring is what other partnerships can be developed between NRHA and NPD, not only to expand the work and relationship that we have, but some of the things that we used to do back in the day with the community, like our sports mentoring program, where we are engaging with the young folk in the community. Due to COVID, a lot of that has gone by the side. A lot of the issues that we could have addressed, that we would normally address, occur in some of our meetings, our TMC meetings. We're not having those right now, so we have to find a way to get around those. I think it's a good idea with the virtual exchange that you were talking about earlier, sir. I think that's a good idea, and we definitely like to participate in that as well. NPD personnel realignment. This question was asked about how the department is being affected with the current climate of policing. Are we up? Are we down? Or are we able to maintain folks? I'm going to let the chief speak on that here in just a moment. He has instituted a plan to kind of realign the department and put more officers on the street in these challenging times until we get back to where we want to be as far as recruitment efforts. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
I'm going to refer to Rose first. Go ahead, Rose.
I want to know, and I've heard so much about the gangs out there in our community. I want to know, are there gangs in our community? Because it seems like they have taken over a lot.
Let me get there. So, good question. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to be as frank as I can with you and ask that you be very, hold me accountable. All right? Ask the difficult questions. So, in 2010, I was placed in charge of our gang unit. And I was a lieutenant at the time. And, at that time, we had gangs. We had gangs in the city, and we were very surgical in how we went about addressing the gang issue. In this city, there's an issue with guns in our youth. In this city, there's an issue with opportunities in our youth. It has been for years. We didn't get here today. Didn't get here last month or last year. When you look at crime, particularly in our marginal communities, you think of a rope, and each thread represents something. One thread may represent education. One may represent employment. One may represent health. One may represent an opportunity to graduate. And that rope is tied in a knot, and that knot represents crime. And there's a hand pulling that knot tightly. And until we address those threads, okay, and it's not just on the police, it's on the community. And I think we've failed in that regard. Let's be honest. When you look at our poverty map, you look at our crime map, you look at our educational map, in which those who have graduated or have not graduated, and you look at our health map, the map that Centurion keeps, and you look at this new gun map that we've created. They go hand in glove. And guess where the most intensified areas of the city are? That didn't happen by mishap. That takes time. And here we are today trying to address those things that happened years ago. But it's on us to say the hard things and do the hard things. And if we're going to continue with some of these conversations down the road, we'll continue to have the same issues. So I say, Chief Boone, what do you suggest? I suggest that, we start working more together. I really appreciate the partnership with NRHA and the police department. We've been lockstep. Can we improve? Absolutely. But we need to find ways to get others involved. When I looked at I recall an article I read right before I became chief, there was a still photo of 3 African-American men. And the photo was 2016 Norfolk incurred its most violent year. I've been chief maybe 2 months. And the photo was 3 African-American young men. They each had a handgun in their hand. And they had smiles on their faces. And I wanted to know how these young folks were getting these guns. And intuitively I knew, but we can't focus on emotion. We have to have data to back that up. Sadly to say, 2 of those young men 2 months later were dead. So what I started doing was mandated that if there's a crime and it's involved a handgun, okay, I want that handgun investigated before it would just be placed in a voucher, never to be looked at again. So for the last 4 years, we know who are purchasing guns. We know where they ultimately end up. So this is how it looks. One will go to Bob's Gun Shop or Superior Gun Shop in the beach. I don't grab those names out the air. I grab them because that's a fact. These guns are bought by white men and black men equally. in very short order, these guns end up in our marginal communities in the hands as young as people as 11. 11. This isn't new. This has always happened. But I decided to take a look under the bed to see the process and why is it happening. Before then, nobody did that. No police agency in the state, in fact, has done that. And I recommended to the governor just yesterday that that becomes a mandate for every police department in the state, particularly police departments that are in urban settings. Because I guarantee you, they have the same issues as we do. So those guns end up in our marginalized communities, and we end up charging young men that don't have 2 nickels to start with. So you're going to hear very shortly, in the coming weeks, about some major federal operations, how guns are getting in the hands of our youth and our felons. We average about 250 felons a year that we take handguns off. So part of the process of investigating the gun, we would go, use it for an example, Joe.
You're gonna do it anyway.
Okay. So we have a crime, we recover the gun, and we look at the gun through the help with ATF, through E-Trace, I'm sorry. And we say, okay, this gun was originally purchased by Joe Dillard. We knock on Mr. Dillard's door. Mr. Dillard, your gun was used in a homicide. Do you know the whereabouts of your gun? 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say no. And that's all we can do at that point. But now, with the new laws surrounding mandatory reporting of loss of stolen guns, they're going to be held accountable. I will guarantee you that behavior is going to change. Because most folks that buy guns have modeled themselves as upstanding citizens to start with to be able to buy the gun. I will guarantee you, you're going to see a significant shift in shootings. Now, Sergeant Dixon put up here that we were really down in total crime throughout the city. I've never seen it that low. But I always say this, if shootings are up, I don't care what that number looks like. You're not doing very well. You're not doing very well. So our kryptonite is shootings. Shootings and finding opportunities for our young, and let me say it with big T, African-American men. That's our kryptonite. That's our challenge. One of the young men that I referred to in that black and white photo, I spoke to him. And I said, well, why do you do this? This Arrington? He said, I don't have anything else to do. 2 months later, he was dead. Now, we can become emotional in this moment and grit our teeth and shake our head and think, but what are the actions we're going to do as a community? What are the actions we're going to do as a community? I'm passionate about public housing. I grew up in public housing. I'm not just standing here pontificating about something I don't know. I know what it's like to look in a refrigerator with baking soda looking right at you. So, I say all that to say, from a law enforcement's perspective, we're going to be more surgical in those challenging areas. Right now, they're Calvert, Youngs, and Oakley. And I don't mean it by the sense that we're going to stop everything moving, because that's not how you do it. But we have a sense of who's who and who's doing what. I will entertain any questions you have. Yes, sir.
Chief, I just to couple us with, I think Sergeant Dixon made a reference something a few minutes ago about the community, and you talked about the partnership that needs to be forged. Suzanne and I lead the safety committee for the Board of Commissioners, and so as such, we interact with our security team and our chief housing officer quite a bit as it relates to this. And one of the things I think we realized at our last meeting for the committee was that we need better partners in the community. And you know, Don Rumsfeld famously said, "You go to war with the army you got." And as a Marine, I know what he meant by that. He wasn't saying that he's not going to improve the forces or the equipment, but it's the same thing with us in those communities. And Donna, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't always have the ideal partner in leadership in the community, right? So it's incumbent upon us, and we can't just go in and change somebody, because then you invalidate whoever the leader is, but it's incumbent upon us to really kind of encourage participation. So we have put a little strategy together that we've solicited Joe's help with, and we're going to really try to encourage the community to be more forthcoming and to be a significant partner. You are living under the threat of this. You have as much responsibility as we do, and let's stop chasing our tail when one of these things happen. But you help us get out ahead of it. You help us close these things when you know what's going on 24/7. So that's kind of where we left our last meeting. The strategy has to go forward, and we have a little more work to do, I think, Donna, in shaping how we approach that. Yes, sir. But please know that that's one of the things that we recognize. Am I
Well done.
Karen, am I correct in what I'm saying here?
Yes, absolutely, sir.
Okay.
And
So,
that, if I could, I'm sorry, Mr. Dillard.
Good,
And that's what Ron was referencing earlier today, is part of his message when we have our virtual resident meeting starting next week, is safety and the residents' role in what goes on in their community, and they have to be part of the solution in addressing the issue. So we're gonna really hit on that in these resident meetings.
and Rose committed to helping us on that. She and Don shared housing committee. And so Rose and I talked about this. Maybe we can have the Rose? Last time you and I talked about it. And so we're on board. That's my point. And we're gonna take the lead on making that happen so that you don't go in and make immediate intimate by virtue of the uniform you got on. So we want the ground to be paved, so when the uniform comes in, you're seen as the cavalry. And so we build a good team, but it's got to start.
Yes, sir.
There.
I appreciate that.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Suzanne,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right.
So is it a combination of lack of trust of the police department, and I don't want to be a snitch? Is that why you're not getting more cooperation from the neighborhood today?
Well, I think that goes back and forth. When you look at measurables by way of surveys, by way of outcomes, for an example, most of our crime, we don't solve ourselves. Okay, we solve with the community. All right, we have a 74% clearance rate. When it comes to homicide, that simply means you solve the homicide. A lot of that is just citizens giving us information. Citizens are reluctant to give us information in some cases, but most of the time, they don't have a problem with it if we're able to protect them. So I don't want you to think there's no snitching concept throughout.
Okay.
Throughout.
Thank
That's
you.
not accurate.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
Is it right to say that you could also tie this to unemployment and that is a despair factor?
That's also fair to say that, but employment has gone up and it's gone down. The knot that I speak of and the threads that I speak of have been consistent. Those maps that I spoke of have been consistent, regardless we are booming economically or not.
If I could, just a totally different question, that's a side question, but do we have any white supremacist gangs in the area? And do you interact with Virginia Beach enforcement at all on gangs and stuff?
Yes, sir, very good question. To your first question, I have not seen any indication of any white supremacist things of that nature. We have heightened our alert for the upcoming election year. We are in communication with Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, Chesapeake. We're going to be operating together as the South Side Coalition regarding concerns for riots, things of that nature for the election year. But we communicate all the time regarding gangs.
Right. Is there a cross of people coming in to Tidewater and Young from Virginia Beach?
Gangs, not as much as Portsmouth and Newport News. Those tend to be the high level concentrations in terms of what group coming into a neighborhood or the other.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I thought you had a question.
So, now I was thinking about, a lot of problems that we have in our communities. Our residents letting those gangs come there. Is our resident a part of this?
I think in some cases, yes. In some cases, that's an affirmative yes.
And you will let us know those residents that are,
Oh,
if they're
absolutely.
doing.
Yes, absolutely.
If I can expand on that just a little bit, Chief. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. When we come across those individuals that are affiliated with a resident that we know to be certified gang members and that we know have a gang affiliation, we absolutely do pass that information on and will continue to pass it on. And what we're finding is that the majority of our shootings, for instance, the 900 block of Bagnell, where we have a significant increase in the aggravated assaults and the discharging of weapons. Several of those folks that are involved in that are affiliated with two residents that we know of in the 800 block of Bagnell. Just last night, we had a similar instance where an officer's driving down the boulevard right there where the bus stop is, and where folks continue to congregate in the 900 block of Bagnell behind the borough office. The officer is driving and hears about 30 shots. Thought the shots were being fired at him because it was so close. So as we go into the community to try to find out where they were coming from, we find that there's one individual that shows up later on in Norfolk General that sustained a gunshot. Boom. It's alive, just a shot to the thigh. I say all that to say this. We've got to make it a little bit uncomfortable for folks to continue congregating in the 900 block of Bagnell. And what we're finding is that we have folks, when we get out to talk to them, they know that they can be on the sidewalk. We're not on NRHA property. We're in the street. You can't do anything to us. And that's the verbiage that we get. So one of the things, real quick, that we would like to look at, that Enforcement Housing Authority has done, is that in our NRHA communities, NRHA is responsible or has control of sidewalk, street, and that would alleviate a lot of that problem. Because right now, they are absolutely correct. They want to stand in the street. Yes, I can maybe hit you for blocking traffic with a summons or something like that. But if you're standing on the sidewalk, you can no longer use the loitering code. You can no longer use the disorderly code to charge someone with blocking a sidewalk or something like that. So those tools that we were able to use are gone, and they know this. So one of the other, and real quick, one of the other issues that I was asked about is folks openly carrying firearms, especially in the 900 block of Bagnell. There's no law against it. There is, we were asked, well, when folks are open carrying their firearms in the 900 block, why isn't the police doing anything about it. That is your right, that's my right, to have a firearm in open carry in public. Unless that person is doing something, violating the law, we are not going to, have any contact with that person, per se. So, went on a little bit, but I hope that answers your question a little bit.
So are there some opportunities to emulate what enforcement's done with respect to the sidewalk and with respect to open carry on NRHA property? I think that's what you're trying to highlight.
Yes, sir.
So there's the opportunities. I mean, as much as we can add to our toolbox, it just puts us in a better position to manage some of our challenges.
Well, that's what I would ask you to, and the conversation with us is what can we put in your toolbox to, as we all know, minimize the opportunities for mischief. And so I think we also recognize, and I'll borrow Commissioner Albert's comment, that we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for meaningful progress in dealing with these particular things.
Yes, sir.
So, and I know you're a metrics guy, so whatever we can do to help respond to those increasing metrics, we'd be more than happy to work with you on those particular issues.
Just so there's no, ambiguity about what I'm about to say, just tell me if I'm wrong or right, but going to the emphasis of, Ken's question earlier about the guys getting out walking around, community policing looks a little different in public housing than it would in a normal configured street. So there's protection of the officers, is paramount if you got two guys, out of their vehicles walking the property. I mean, it's not to say you can't get out and look at certain, but just walking around the entire community, you got a lot of blind spots, you got a lot of alleys, you got a lot of things that they can walk into, and so it just looked a little different. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah. So community policing, as we would typically think about it, is a little different when you go down in the housing community. A lot of those are closed societies, so to speak, even though they are ours, they're kind of closed. And, so community walking those properties is difficult.
If I may, sir, also, another aspect to that is, as far as our community resource officers that are assigned to our NRHA communities, got to be very careful who we assign to those communities, because sometimes the reason that it takes so long to get someone there, I want to make sure that that person is the proper fit for the community. And what I mean by that is this: if I put a person out there that doesn't really understand how to maintain the balance between community relations and criminal enforcement, and if either one of those things are off, there's going to be an issue. So making sure that we have the right officer who has the skills and ability, not saying that all of us don't. When we put on the uniform, we come with certain skills and abilities that we're able to handle certain situations. But when we have an officer that can communicate with folks from all walks of life and can understand what particular situation a person may be in, and still enforce the needs of the community in a criminal aspect way, that's very important. And one of the things that I did not address that I intended to was the community resource officer vacancies, particularly in Oakley, and when we intend to fill those. That's part of the problem right now that I'm hoping to have a resolution to here in the next week or so. I wanted to wait and make sure that I've got the right person that I can put in the community and be able to handle business without creating a major issue. So just wanted to explain that real quick as well.
Thank you guys for this presentation.
Thank you.
My final comment will be just, I think we've known each other a while, Chief, and we've been through bias training. We've been through some things we don't even want to talk about.
Now you just let
well, I want to let them speculate, because you already have your Obama speech down. You're already a politician now. I think everyone on this board is eager to fix or do our part in fixing this issue. But I want us to also remember, and we always talk about this, Chief, biases. And bias.
Yes, sir.
So when we talk about open carry on Bengal Road, I don't care that it's Bengal Road, because if you're not comparing the situation with East Ocean View, like sobriety checks, then it's always gonna be an issue with me. So let's just make sure that whatever is recommended is fair and equitable from a
Sure.
biased lens.
And I thank you for highlighting that, because I did not consider that initially. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
All right, folks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a resolution going on page 34 in your tablets, the annual 5-year plan. We could have Ms. Thomas come on up.
So,
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm back. It's that time again, time to talk about the resolution to approve the annual plan, annual and 5-year plan. In your packet, you will see the final draft plans that were submitted to you for consideration. I'm gonna just walk through some of the things that may look different, some of the things that are familiar, and then ask for a disposition on the resolution request that begins. So, this thing, I don't like me very much. Okay. So, the plan purpose, the Quality in Housing, the Work Responsibility Act of 1998 requires that all public housing authorities complete a 5-year plan and an annual plan. The plan should include information about goals, objectives, strategies for public housing, Section 8/HCV, and demolition and disposition activities. We also want to have information in the plan that references site-based wait lists, requirements or mandates by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and our objectives and strategies for achieving our mission in public housing and the HCV program. So in totality, the plan that you have before you is pretty much what we call a blueprint or a playbook of what we intend to do over the next 5 years. Some of the things that are included in this plan are our goals and our objectives. And we've steadfast fast to these same goals and objectives over the last few years. The way that we get to these goals may vary year to year, but we still want to make sure we're providing safe, decent, and affordable housing, improving the quality of low-income public housing program participants, making sure that we overall have a quality HCV program, assist housing, increase the assisted housing choices in our community, improve community quality of life and economic vitality, promote self-sufficiency and development of the family of individuals, ensure equal opportunity, we should actually say equal and equitable opportunity in housing for all Americans, and improve energy efficiency in public housing. So some of the things that I want to highlight as part of some updates or new things you may see in this plan. Of course, we have included information about the St. Paul's Transformation Project. The Transformation Project, as it is defined, is Tidewater Garden. But we've also included information about Tidewater, as well as Young and Calvert, just to say that there is some possibility that some activity may happen. It's important to point out, and as I've worked with staff to push this point, the plan is not necessarily what we're going to do, but what we aspire to do. And HUD requires us to have it documented that we aspire to do certain activities. So although there has been no resolution, there has been no definitive action taken place regarding Calvert and Young, we do want to have it in the plan as a placeholder in case we get to the point that we can move forward on those activities in those communities as well.
We've talked in the past about if it's not in here, the process to amend the 5-year plan is longer than the process to do the 5-year plan. So that's why, I don't want to call this a wish list, but it is an all-encompassing thing, just sort of, as you said, just in case we get to that point within the 5 years, we don't have to go through that lengthy process of amending it.
Exactly. And to the commissioner's point, again, the short and dirty that I've given the staff has been, if you're thinking about it, let's include it in the plan, because it is far more difficult to enact a significant amendment, or just as difficult to enact a significant amendment as it is to produce a 5-year plan. We've also talked about demolition and disposition activities. So in some cases, for example, Topwater Gardens, you will see that with that demolition and disposition activity underway, it's mentioned in the plan. And then in some cases, again, we talk about the possibility of things happening in other communities. Proposed RAD conversions of public housing. In this plan, significantly, there's an emphasis on a lot of our mid-rises being converted to PBD communities. So that should be highlighted as well. And this year we did add actually department and division priorities. We've always had goals in our plan, but this year decided to challenge the staff to include priorities. What are the things that we know as practitioners and technicians that we need to do in order for us to move forward in the business that we're used to? So a lot of the priorities actually were around technology, increasing technology, figuring out ways we can contact folks without being in close proximity. I think COVID may have exposed to us that there are more things that we can do remotely than we've ever done before and be successful at it at the same time. So this plan does include a lot of the departmental priorities. Again, this is an annual and 5-year plan. So it includes annual and 5-year goals. These are things that we intend to pursue and accomplish over the next 1 to 5 years. It also collects changes to the admission and continued occupancy policy for public housing, as well as changes to the housing choice voucher administrative plan. There were quite a few charts and tables that were included that really talk about language being changed out. And some of it you will see was very minute. It was maybe changing something from and to just. But even those small minute plan changes or wording changes can change the way something is interpreted and even move forward. As always, the flat rent schedule is included, and we do still have the capital fund plan in this annual and 5-year plan. It's not only the capital fund plan that was approved by HUD, because that's a separate process, but this year we also took a look at what it would take in the capital fund arena to really achieve all of the project aspirations that we have across the entire agency. So it's a look at what was actually approved, and then a look at what we really need, just to kind of show some of those funding disparities and where we may need to make some really firm decisions about how money is spent. We included accomplishments and awards this year because we did have quite a few awards come to our agency. And of course, the Section 3 plan as it is currently written. I do want to take a time to actually acknowledge and say special thank you to Communications and Government Relations. We did change the look and appeal of the plan. We've gotten some really good feedback, and I hope that you all see that our Board of Commissioners finally made it, your pictures finally made it to our annual plan. So we want to let folks know that this is our leadership, these are the folks we take direction from, and we're happy to highlight that. As part of the plan, yes.
For you to take your mask off.
I actually feel comfortable.
Okay, that's
So,
fine. Just so it
it's just me.
doesn't hinder you.
Okay,
You're doing
yes, but I appreciate it. So, just want to talk about the 45-day public comment period, beginning July 27th through September the 11th. We had our public hearing here last month as part of the September Board of Commissioners meeting. And the transcripts from that Board of Commissioners meeting is included in the plan copy that you received, along with all other supporting documents and comments. So we did receive a few comments from the public outside of the public hearing. We had a dedicated phone line, as well as the opportunity for folks to email me directly with questions and comments. We have gotten back to most of those folks. A few of the folks who have offered comments or questions wanted a final copy of the plan to be sent to them once it's approved. So if that approval goes through, we'll make sure that that happens too. And again, today's purpose for me being here is to ask the board to approve a resolution for this plan as it is written or with any comments noted for change. The plan would be due for submission to HUD by October 18th, which is oddly enough Sunday. So we do have a couple days if necessary to make any tweaks or changes to it. And at this point, I'm open for questions, suggestions. Otherwise, I would ask that the board consider the resolution for approval.
Questions? All right, then, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Harrington? Aye. Mr. Gresham? Ms. Courier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Musacchio?
Aye.
Thank you.
No, I thank you for marshaling this process through these very difficult times. I know it certainly hasn't been very easy, but thank you very much for your support and all of the staff who put all of this together.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Okay, next is, excuse me, development, Tidewater Gardens disposition. Steve Morales?
Howdy. First thing, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
fantastic. So back in August, I came before the board to discuss submitting a disposition application to HUD. This is really an important step in the whole CNI process. And so NRHA, staff, we've completed our environmental review. We are preparing the attaching documents, and we've received the support letter from the city. And what this disposition approval will allow, it will allow NRHA to lease land to the developer for the new CNI housing project, as well as to the city for needed infrastructure. And this will be done on a parcel by parcel basis as needed once we have HUD approval. So the resolution before you today will authorize NRHA to submit the disposition application to HUD. This is part of the Section 18 process that's required, and staff recommends approval of the resolution. Happy to take any questions.
Questions, commissioners? Okay, there's some information on what Steve's been talking about is on page 155 in your tablet. But again, Steve's done a good job of basically saying where we are on it. So if there are no further comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Who was that? Okay, we'll take a sec for folks to take a look at it quickly, Steve, if you got a sec.
Not a problem. Again, we brought this before the board back in August and then provided the update last month in September to make sure that we had gotten the information out early to the board prior to today.
Yeah.
You're looking for a motion?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Harrington?
Aye.
Mr. Gresham? Ms. Courier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Musacchio?
Aye. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is LaShondra about Dickstown Phase 1.
What page do you have, Mr. Chair?
On that one, I have 158.
And before Lysandra started, hey, Lysandra, before you got started, I just wanted to preface with some of the things, the challenges that you all have been going through with this particular project. I really appreciate Lysandra's effort. She actually came in the middle of this project, and there's been a lot of challenges that they've had to go through to try to control the cost of this project. And this is one of the things she's going to talk to you about. But I just wanted to just Vice the project oversight, and also Terry in terms of financing, that they've done a really good job of trying to control costs that could have gone way out of control and really impacted NRHA funding, but they were able to work out something, which is what she's going to talk about. So I just wanted to just publicly acknowledge her effort and her team's effort with this particular project before she got started.
Thanks, Ron. And again, I want to emphasize that there's some positive components and positive changes since our last discussion, and I'll talk about those. At the end of last year, I spoke to the board about the financial challenges the Diggstown project was facing due to the increase in change orders. I explained that the increase in change orders was due to unforeseen conditions in the buildings and additional costs associated with Virginia housing requirements. At that time, there was about an $800,000 amount in existing change orders, and we estimated an additional $4.8 million in future change orders, and that amount would have totaled $5.6 million in total hard change orders. I explained that large amount of costs were associated with landscaping, fireproofing the attics, and skim coating the units. At this time, I'd like to say that the total hard cost change orders are $5 million. That is a decrease from the amount I initially told you about. However, it's still over 25% of the contract. So due to NRHA's procurement policy, we're seeking approval from the board to execute the change orders. But I want to take a step back, if you'd allow me, and give you an update about the financing on the project related to the change orders. So in February of this year, you'll recall the NRHA outlined a financial strategy to fund the increased project costs. And that strategy included the use of additional capital funds, utilizing the deferred developer fee, issuing a letter of credit instead of cash funding the operating reserve. And as a result of that discussion, the Board of Commissioners authorized the use of $1.3 million in capital funds and $500,000 in NRHA unrestricted reserves to be utilized for change orders that weren't approved by Virginia Housing. From there, NRHA worked in partnership with Virginia Housing to develop a new strategy to fund the increased project costs. So NRHA is proposing that we still use a letter of credit for operating reserves and the deferred developer fee as outlined in our discussions in February. However, the need for the $1.3 million in additional capital funds and the $500,000 from NRHA unrestricted reserves has been eliminated. So Virginia Housing has approved an additional 15-month tax-exempt bond for the project, which will be utilized for financing during the construction period. The tax-exempt bond will be converted to soft debt in the form of a taxable note at construction completion, and payment will be made from available project fund cash flow. So I want to put emphasis on the fact that this resolution and the approval of this resolution doesn't represent a request for more funding to the project, but it gives the executive director or his designee the authority to approve and negotiate the necessary change orders. So today I'll be asking for the approval of this resolution. Are there any questions?
Questions?
In the overview, it says change orders for $100,000 or more, regardless of funding, or required by NRHA board approval. In the resolution, it says change orders in the amount greater than. So we're basically in the resolution saying that we're given authority for anything over $100,000. But in the background, it doesn't say that.
Okay, can you clarify that?
Yeah, so the emphasis is on, if you look in the background information where I point you to NRHA's procurement policy, particularly we're addressing the point that says 25% if you read the second line where it says change orders that exceed 25% of the amount of the contract need to be approved by the board. Are you seeing that?
Yes, ma'am, I'm seeing it.
And so that's what we're referring to in the resolution. This amount exceeds 25% of the original contract.
I understand that, but in that last sentence, it says change orders for $100,000 or more, regardless of funding sources, and all change orders which modify the scope of work require NHA board approval background where we're doing the resolution of whereas, therefore, in the first one, on the second line, it says change orders to Brigham Civil in the amount greater than 100,000 for false. It's giving him or his designee authority to do anything greater than 100,000, which is the opposite of what it says in the background. Or am I reading this wrong?
Hold on, I'm looking at the resolution.
Okay.
Number one.
So you're looking at number one, the executive director or his designee is hereby authorized to issue additional change orders to the Bridgman Civil contract in the amount greater than $100,000 for costs that will be incurred during the increased project cost. Is that what you're speaking to?
Yes, ma'am. So are we saying that any change order over $100,000 for this project now will be automatically approved by the ED or his designee?
So in the change orders, we have a couple that do exceed $100,000. What we're saying is the aggregate amount of all those change orders exceeds 25%. So essentially, we are addressing those both under now, therefore, and so we're seeking approval and to address those both of those points in that area. Is that clear? So we do have some change orders that.
So are we, if we do this approval, we're approving the $5 million that Ron needs to, in the change order, right? Are we also additionally saying that any other change order doesn't need the board approval over $100,000? That's what this reads like.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is.
Go ahead.
So what we're saying is we've accumulated the change orders for the project and they total $5 million. That's a procurement statement that we put in there to address the procurement policy. But this resolution primarily addresses the fact that we are 25% over the contract amount. We listed the total. I'm sorry, we listed the total procurement policy there.
Yeah, if you look at on the background, I think it's on the 1, 2, 3. I think it's like the paragraph before it says financial update.
Right.
It talks about the procurement policy, and it says, and it represents our policies. All change order approvals are subject to availability. Change orders for 1,000 or more, regardless of funding source, requires board approval. So it's just stating that we need your approval to go over our procurement policy, which is $100,000 to approve the $5 million.
Okay.
For this project.
Okay.
Yeah, just for
Right, this is not like, you can always do this.
Yeah, that's all.
I agree with that, Ms. Cohen.
That's what I'm.
Yes, but I think there are two different questions. So I think Ron is absolutely correct, but then to Mr. Dillard's point, the issue is that the procurement policy has two facets. One is the 25% threshold, and the other is the 100,000.
Yes.
And the resolution is addressing both. But it is not giving a blanket authority to the executive director to approve any change order whatsoever above 100,000. It's just saying that here we're exceeding both thresholds. There are change orders of $100,000 or more, and there is also a 25% issue. So these are both approved.
Gotcha.
And if you look at the now therefore paragraph number 2, that is the total amount.
Right.
So the executive director cannot go above that, even though there is the language about the $100,000, which I think is what is causing perhaps the confusion.
Yeah.
Is because we have those two different thresholds that taking an additional approval that's necessary from the board.
Gotcha.
Does that answer your question?
I understand now. Yep.
Thank you.
Now, will the minutes reflect what you just,
I'm sorry?
will the minutes reflect what you just told Joe? Because I understand what he was saying. It is like we're giving the executive director the authority in this resolution to make any decision above 100,000.
Right, and I'm happy to address in the minutes that there is still that cap, and that's what you're approving today. I'm happy to reflect that.
Yes, please.
Lysandra, are we on the same page?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that, Delphine.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With the understanding of the discussion, Ms. Carnes, will you take a vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Harrington?
Aye.
Mr. Gresham? Ms. Purrier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Masaccio?
Aye. You had something?
Could I make further comment?
Yeah, sure.
You know, we need to find an answer to the change orders. We've talked about this with other projects and now with this one. And I always say it's either the designer, the owner, or the contractor who cause change orders. But this is obviously the banker, Virginia Housing, or, you know, other requirements. Could we, in the future, visit these projects before they go out and get sign off beyond our team to Ron's level, so that we have an insurance that Virginia Department of Housing or whoever, you know, are our partners in this, have signed off that they don't have any additional requirements?
And we are.
Because this is an ongoing thing. Am I reading it correctly that Virginia Department of Housing is a major reason we're so far over now?
I think, Lysandra, can you answer that? I think that they are, with some of the change orders.
Yeah, so some of the change orders are indeed linked to Virginia housing requirements. And then, you know, on the other hand, this is like an over 60-year-old building, and there were some unforeseen things in the building that weren't addressed in the scope of work.
Yeah, that becomes the design professional's responsibility to identify them. You know, we've just got to find a way to reduce. In the private sector, you would never have 25% overage.
No, but then basically, I mean, we're almost at where we're almost getting close, I think, to where the next bid, to the next lowest bid. And I mean, it's just from what I've seen, it starts right from the beginning with the bids, and then looking at the values, making sure that there's consistency between the RFP and what's being proposed. And I don't know if that's being done. And also, like you said, if there's an outside agency that's financed like VHD, making sure that everything is in there that they're going to require before we let the RFP out, so we don't have these late additions as we're in the middle of the project, and then we're scrambling around looking for funds.
Yeah,
it starts in the beginning. Just like
it probably should have been rebid.
Yes.
Very definitely. But then you get into a time factor that everybody has put into it for the funding to work out.
Yeah.
So we've got to do our job as best we can with the resources we have, and we've got to hold the folks we hire to a standard, because we ain't got much money in our pockets.
No, and we are taking a look at the whole process from now on before we even let out any more projects. I know, like I mentioned before, that Lysandra pretty much came in the middle of this project, but it was already a lot of challenges. Like she said, in an older building, trying to make the renovations, the per unit cost have skyrocketed from the initial cost. I mean,
Well, I have great respect for our staff.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that. I think it's that we somehow or another missed a step of making sure the financing, you know, wouldn't be that big a deal. And then the architects, you know, should have caught some of the stuff, it sounds like.
But yeah, we are going to, before we do any future projects like that, we definitely got to do our due diligence a lot better than we have in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Joe?
I know y'all can probably be patient with me, and the record could show. Did we vote on the disposition already? Is that what I made the motion on before this? So is it possible, having voted on the prevailing side, that we can bring that back up for another vote? I thought I was voting for the right to return policy that we worked on I didn't pull it up on my iPad at the time, that it was a disposition, so I would regard it. So I would like to bring it back up for a vote.
Yes, so we'll bring it back, in case not everybody heard the comment. The comment is that earlier there was a vote on the Tidewater Gardens disposition, and one commissioner had some confusion about which page of the packet we were on and what vote we were taking. So for the record, we are going to start over and retake that vote. We are at item Roman numeral 4, number 1, the Tidewater Gardens disposition. We will ask for a new motion and second before we take a new vote. So the previous vote will be considered erroneous and taken by accident based on some confusion about what we were voting on. So I will ask for a new motion, please, on item 4.1, which is the motion to authorize the submission to HUD of a demolition application for Tidewater Gardens.
And that was the Steve Morales presentation. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Arrington?
Aye.
Mr. Gresham?
Aye.
Ms. Purrier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Nay.
Mr. Mustachio?
Aye. Just make sure we cover how we did the review. Okay. Dick, any other questions?
Yes, sir, thank you.
No, I think it's spot on now that, you know, because just looking at it, if you were this was your project and you owned it, you don't want these things to keep popping up.
Well, once the fox gets in the hen pen, you know, he may not have all the chickens, but he's got the advantage.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've got to, you know, change orders hurt everybody, including the contractor, but they really mess up your finances.
Mm-hmm. Okay, on, next is, Michael Clark on our public hearing and the funding application, which is on 160 in your tablet.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
And please forgive me for taking off the mask. I just want to make sure you hear me, and rest assured, as soon as I'm done, I'm putting it back on. As noted, I'll be presenting the Development Division funding application, and after that, it'll be followed with a public hearing. As in the past, the division lives off these funding sources, which are the general fund, CD, CIP, and homes. Pretty sure you've seen this slide for a number of years and you know what we tend to do with that money. But I wanted to, before we get into the actual application, just to look back at 2020 to review some of the things we've done with that. Primarily using CIP funds, we've acquired and demolished property in Ward's Corner, Willoughby, and Spartan Village Inner Circle. You'll see that we closed on all the remaining lots at the homes at Bay Oaks. And while not necessarily part of the actual funding to close on it, we didn't use CIP obviously to close on the lots, but to create the individual land, we had the lots that were sold, we had to acquire and demolish a number of properties, and we actually had to install infrastructure. And CIP was utilized for that. For the HomeNet department completed 33 closings, and through Home, we issued 24 certificates of eligibility and provided assistance to 13 first-time home buyers. You'll note the city funding trends chart, which again, you've seen before. And the point to this is, you know, we're not likely to see 2014 and 2015 numbers again, but as I said, in the past 2 or 3 years, we have been fairly consistent, and as you can see in 2019, 2020, and 2021. One of the things I want to mention with this current year's budget, we of course, and you'll recall in the last board meeting, we presented a resolution to accept money from the CARES Act so we could implement the COVID relief program. We have that in 2021. We're not anticipating that in 2022. Hopefully, we'll never have to do this type of a program again. But that represents an example of funds that the city utilizes us for, and they would give it to us. Again, we had already approved the 2021 budget, but those funds came later. Getting into the actual 2022 application. For 2022, our total request is a little over 11.9 million. And again, we're breaking into the funding sources you've seen before. CIP, the City of Norfolk General Fund, Home, and CD. To get into the initiatives through the CIP program, and again, these are items that you've seen before, and we're trying to continue that effort. The transforming public housing communities, the blight removal in East Ocean View, Ward's Corner, and Willoughby, infrastructure design and planning for the former J.T. West school site in Huntersville. And a side note to this one, we don't own the land yet. This is still with the city. However, we've had some recent conversations that lead us to believe that we might get that parcel transferred to us, and if we do, this money will be used to, as it said, to design the infrastructure.
The school site?
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. And again, we don't have it yet, but we're hearing that might be a possibility sometime in 2022. It's kind of hard. We're talking about 20, 21, and 22 in one presentation. And again, Home with Norfolk, the program, and also program delivery. The general fund, and again, you can see the items. Many of them are the same as what's before. There's really nothing different that you've seen. Home and CD, which will support HomeNet. The application timeline, we're in the process where we're still negotiating with the city, and based on input from you as well as stakeholders, the application has been put together. Will be submitted to the city, as you can see, during the fall. We hope to bring back the application for you to vote on this spring. I know that was somewhat fast compared to normal years, but at the same time, I want to open it up for questions before we move to the public hearing.
Questions or comments? Okay, Mike, we'll be getting the court reporter.
Yes.
And so we'll just take a second here. And I've got some things I need to read to the public to make sure they're okay. When you're ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'd like to commence a public hearing, portion of our agenda today to discuss the city funding application. I'd like to make a note, callers, if you would like to submit a comment, please dial *9, that's *9, to raise your hand. Then when called upon, please address this room by stating your first and last name, address, and your comment. Again, first and last name, address, and then your comment. Again, just to be clear that this is for your comments. We do not often answer particular questions at this moment, but we will see that someone does get back to you to answer your questions. So again, *9 to raise your hand. And we'll give a minute or two for that.
I'll check the hallway as well.
Yeah, please, check the hallway, yes.
We have no one in the hallway, and we have no one who's raised their hand online.
Okay, I'll give one, I love this 1 minute thing. I give one more 1 minute. All right, the fact that we have no in-person people waiting to comment nor on the line, I will now call the public hearing to a close. Thank you.
Take me just a second.
Take your time. Just, like I said, hope you don't get just paid by the word. Because the last 2 or 3. Well, Mike, I think you can go ahead to have a development report.
Just if there are any questions regarding the reports on development that were in your packet, I can answer those now. And if not, I wish you all a good day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, I do have one thing, Mike. Just,
Yes, sir.
you had put out a request for proposals on the properties, was it 8 or 9 of them?
Yes.
And can you give us a quick update on how that went?
We actually awarded, and I'll give you a better summary in the next pack. I'll give you an update. We awarded all but one lot. One we're putting back out again. There was a issue with the developer, so we're putting one back out again. But all the others, we have gotten good commitments from the builders. We will be getting the deposits in shortly, because you have to, once you bid on it, we send out your notice as award, you have to put your deposit in. We anticipate that pretty shortly, and then we start going the final plan review and approval process, and then move to closing. You'll probably see those lots close with the builder from the first of the year, with groundbreaking soon thereafter.
Okay, great.
So,
Well, it goes to the point that the properties that we acquire, people are interested in, so.
oh yes, yes they are. And a particular note was it's funny, there's one in Willoughby that we actually have a builder on that we're still trying to demolish. That's how, we just closed on it the end of June, right before the end of the fiscal year. We got the property, and it takes a little bit of time to get your cutoff notices and everything lined up, which we're doing now. But we already have a builder for that now.
Great.
Is there anything else I can answer?
Anything else for Michael? All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Finance and Administrative Operations, page 172. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything in that? New business? Folks? Nothing? Okay. Starting on page 176 to page 206 is the committee minutes. Committee members, anything you want to highlight?
Joe and I want to talk a little bit about the Housing Choice Voucher Committee meeting where we reviewed the right of return policy that we just needed some clarification on last month. I believe that we had fully discussed that. Staff we're going to make a few changes, nothing substantive, and that's ready to come back to the board for a resolution for approval.
Okay.
So that right to return, so we'll look for that. I just want the record to show that we've, the committee has approved it, is comfortable with it, and asked for it to come back next month for a formal resolution.
Okay, great. Great.
Is that good, Joe?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, Bruce? Okay.
Okay. Other comments? All right. We did have a individual who would like to address the Board of Commissioners, Ms. Kylie Wilson. And I'll ask her to come in before we go into close up. Won't ask her to wait through that. And in your package, we have a statement from Ms. Wilson.
Okay, hello, thank
Hi.
you. Good morning. The one I gave you has a typo on the date, so I apologize. It's not May, it's April. My name is Carl Wilson. I live at Franklin Arms on Pittsburgh Road, and I'm not here to I applaud NRHA because as growing up and up until I was self-sufficient, I rented homes, so I cannot say that my experience with public housing has been bad. It has been a good one. But what I can say is that when you put people in place and they start to abuse their position and not follow the regulations and procedures put in place so that everybody lives in harmony, I personally have a problem. Because for me, I live in a senior building, and paramount to me and to them as a former advisory council member and as a tenant is our safety. If you constantly put our safety in jeopardy, I have learned to speak out. You cannot park your vehicle in our front door if an ambulance shows up. We're supposed to say, the ambulance guy is supposed to say, oh, well, we'll wait until that service vehicle moves and then go inside the building and help that occupant. I am passionate, maybe too passionate, just about that if I come into my building and there's a mirage of refrigerators and I've got to navigate just to get the door, but yet still, you don't never know when that ambulance is going to show up, what he's going to do. I don't want everyone to hear at Franklin Arms, I can't speak for any other complex, that a person's situation got worse because the EMTs could not get to them because they couldn't get inside the building. That is my passion. That is my concern. This is 2020, and when Franklin Arms was built, it was a state-of-the-art community for the seniors and disabled. Well, it has fallen by the wayside. Too many repairs need to be done. That should have been taken care of. I'm not here to put a big presentation to show you the repairs need to be done. It needs to stay in-house. What I'm saying to you, what I have had to go through because of my passion to speak are wrong and have it. I have no problem with management. I have no problem with the people you put in place. But I do have a problem when you don't take action when somebody lets you know. And the way you want to silence their voice, say your problem, you got to go. And then when you do the procedures that supposedly leads up to what I'm dealing with, then I find discrepancies because you did not make me privy the whole time. Oh, that's not available. Oh, that does not exist. So all of a sudden it exists. So what I went through, no one else has had to go through. I have not done anything to get me where my manager has placed me. So I'm asking for you to review, to look. Because I was a great person from 2012, 2015, I joined the advisory council. Up until 2019, I was in good standing. So how can a person also become a nuisance? Nothing has changed about what I've done and what I do. I'm that same person. I'm a voice because people come to me. I'm not even in the advisory council anymore, and people still come to me with their concerns. When you put people in power, they need to understand that that does not give them the right to break protocol and do what they want to do. I thank you for the time. You all stay safe, stay healthy.
Yes, I'd like to add, Ms. Wilson, forgive my ignorance, but, if you are looking for any comment, any action, anything from the commissioners, I think, I don't understand what it is that we are looking at.
Okay. I've been accused of being a nuisance in my building. Unfounded charges have been leveled against me. I have evidence, and I brought it to their attention that it's hearsay. It's just their word against mine. When I asked to have an amicable meeting between myself and one of the parties, I was ignored. So it escalated. When I got to do another meeting against a staff member, I was ignored. How do you for a male to be afraid of female, but all he got to do is walk? I'm down. I'm tall, but I'm still a female. So how can you be afraid of me? And then they say video footage. Every time I asked for the video footage, I was told it did not exist. Come to find out that it does exist. But the funny part about it is the first 5 minutes and 43 seconds of the video exists. It shows the driver coming in the building, but it doesn't show the driving leaving the building. And during that time frame, the driver and I had a chance to talk. I had a chance to apologize. We were on amicable terms. The next driver that came to the building, that video is not even in the footage. Where did the video go? It all happened on the same day. Where is this footage? And everything is done digitally, as far as I know. Where is the footage? If you are going to use video footage to condemn me, then show it all. Not just that portion that kind of like tries to prove your point. And the sad part about it, I was exonerated from those 2 days that this incident happened because I had a GTA meeting and we talked about it. I made my amends. I apologize, but yet this information was brought back up on my grievance hearing. Either you say it's a done deal on April 20th, we start afresh, or you don't. If you stick by your word or you don't. I just think a lot of regulation procedures were not followed that would have alleviated what I'm going through. I was not aware, since I've known the advisory council, the management, the security officers, and ourselves have a list of the people that can use the intercom system. I was not aware that the maintenance mechanic can tell who and cannot. When we have a list, it says such, these 5 people, if they need to use, make an announcement in the building, they can do this. I didn't know that the maintenance man can supersede that and say, no, such and such, I'm on such and such. Well, when I talked to the former property manager, that's not how it works. Unless the property manager goes to the maintenance man and tells them, I don't want such and such person ever use the intercom system, then as far as the advisory council knows, down from the parliamentarian to the president, anybody can go in that office and make an announcement. And with that, everything is not covered. So I'm fighting, it seems like I'm fighting an uphill battle, and I hate to say it, someone wants me gone. Is they want me gone because of what I speak, because I'm concerned about the safety of our building? Shame on them. I'm the same woman that gets up on Sundays, goes outside because for some odd reason, people, if the trash is doors open, filled, and they can't get their trash in, they just put it on the ground. We didn't used to have that when the former property manager was at Franklin on. We didn't have to worry about delivery truckers coming and parking right in front of our door where people unload and impeding our progress to get into our building. We didn't have that when the former property manager was there. We didn't have to worry about the elevator breaking down because she had to maintain, a guy came once a month or every other month. We didn't have to worry about that. Right now, they are back there trying to fix it again. We have more problems now since new management has been put in place. And like I said, for me, it's about the safety of the residents. We are first. You say people first? That's your mantra, people first? Well, this new management has fallen short. They have fallen short. If they want to silence my voice, like doing trumped-up charges and lying, I have a problem with that.
Well, Ms. Wilson, I understand it is in the grievance process.
But the grievance process tainted.
Again,
Okay.
the process is there, and I know you're in the middle of it, and we certainly appreciate you bringing these concerns to us. But again, it is in the process, and so we will wait until the process goes forward. But appreciate you bringing that to us and your letter.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
You have a
And stay safe yourself.
I am. I'm looking to do what I do at the building, pick up around the place,
Great.
do what I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anything new come up?
No.
So we're set for the, let me get the appliance from hell back up.
Don't worry, Dom. By January, you'll be doing the next Apple keynote, building the next iPad.
No. I'm just getting the Morse code down after I've done the smoke signal. And then I got 400, whatever, what page am I on? 454.
454.
Where? I don't know. See, I'm only on page 9 of 506 now. Somebody got it where I know. See, this thing is against me. I don't know. Have you got it?
I've got it. I got it too.
You want me to lend it to you?
I was about to walk mine over there to him.
Yeah, something to see, it just, I'm on page 40.
Charge for it, Joe.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
thank you. All right, that's the certifying, right?
One before it.
Yeah. I see.
Mine is pages, so this is it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Uh,
Wait for Mr. Albert to.
I am back. I am here in the flesh. It is I.
All right. Be resolved that the authority will convene in a closed meeting pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended, the act, to discuss the following matter, which is specifically exempted from public disclosure by the code section referred to below. 1, consultation with the authority's legal counsel regarding probable litigation requiring the provision of legal advice by the council as authorized by section 2.2-3711.A.7 of the act. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Arrington? Aye. Mr. Gresham?
Aye.
Ms. Poirier?
Aye.
Mr. Benet?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Musacchio?
Aye. We will take a minute or two, and then we've got some things about the meeting and all of that stuff. I'll let Jen deal with all that. But again, remembering that we are not to discuss any business during this little lapse while we get all the technology together, okay? So we'll take about 4 minutes or so to be able to do that, right, Jen?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Joe, I'll have to have you come back.
Yes.
Go see, there's something.
Okay, we're on.
Here, almost, let me go right over here. Don, do you have the resolution?
Right here. Now that my mentor, my IT mentor, Joe can.
Okay, you're good.
We ready?
Yes.
All right, whereas the authority has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas section 2.2-3712.d of the 1950 Code of Virginia as amended requires a certification by this authority that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore, upon motion duly made and seconded, be it resolved that the authority hereby certifies that to the best of each commissioner's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the authority. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Arrington?
Aye.
Mr. Gresham?
Aye.
Mr. Benesky?
Aye.
Mr. Musachio?
Aye. All right. Are there any other questions or comments? If there's anybody on the virtual part who wants to make something, *9, well, if not, then I will go ahead and close the October meeting. Thank you.
Very good. I'll meet you over there.
Like
I gotta make a couple calls.
You're gonna call me?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll leave
our church is where.